Well, g'day there, everybody. Welcome to Faith, Culture and Politics in Australia with Mark. This is our first episode, and coming to you, I'm Mark Neugebauer from South Australia. For those that have been following for a while, obviously you'd know that I was doing South Australia in Focus and some other podcasts, and looking to do this one going forward. Let's see how it goes. This is the first one. I'm looking to have some guests on over the coming weeks, and we'll just see how things go. And not guaranteeing anything, but we'll just give it a good hard crack where we are. So look, if you're wherever you're watching, if you want to hit that like, subscribe, follow button on whichever platform you might be watching on, I'd really appreciate that, and see if we can get those numbers growing as well. So if we get those followers going on the platforms that I'm streaming to. On this first show, going to be covering a range of things that have piqued my attention during the last few days or weeks, and just cover them for you and to get a start on. And what I recommend is, if you hear something, you see something, happy for you to correct me, challenge, question, whatever. Put some comments in the post wherever you might be seeing this, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook or wherever it might be. Put some comments in there. I may not be able to respond to all of them, but if I see them, get some feedback, maybe look at ways to improve, talk into topics a little bit more. So we'll just see where it grows from here. Like anything that's new, it's very interesting when it first starts off. You're going to see what you've got to find out who's interested and what sort of topics people are into, but hopefully can also get some good guests for discussions and interviews as well, and we'll go from there. And obviously, if you do have the ability, I've got a Buy Me a Coffee. That's Buy Me a Coffee at Mark Neugebauer. I'll put the link in for you guys as well, to be able to if you have the means and the ability, if you like what you see, if you see value in what I'm going to bring you, then by all means I'd appreciate that support. And who knows again where that might lead. I might be able to get some further support, eventually possibly some additional assistance with research on certain things and topics. But look, I guess the sky's the limit, and we'll see where it goes. So look, we'll get into it. I'll start with my sort of a first little story from my own state here in South Australia, and someone that I've got to know over the few years. We've just had a release by One Nation, and I'm just going to quickly just play this little bit here from for 5MU. Hopefully the sound will come through okay.
Victor Harbour councillor Klaus Schwab has been named as One Nation's lead candidate for the next state election. Senator Pauline Hanson has joined him in Adelaide, saying the candidate is passionate about representing the state and holding the government to account. Schwab says his priorities include tackling cost of living pressures, housing shortages and reforming local government. Victor Harbour.
So, yep, that's here in South Australia, lead Senate candidate for One Nation. And I, as a disclaimer, I do know Carlos, and I believe that he'll actually be a great asset if elected to the Senate. And looking forward to seeing what might become. You'll hear from him, no doubt. He's definitely also will have a lot to say, and at some stage, hopefully, I might be able to get him on as well and have a bit of a yarn about where he sees politics and the nation and our state going, because there's obviously quite a few things going on here in my own state here in South Australia. Jumping across to another story that's caught my attention, and I'm just going to play this quickly. This is from Channel 9. It's also posted on another person's post, but I'll play that in a minute. But I'll just play this quickly, this clip.
Parents at an Adelaide Catholic school have expressed their anger after an 11-year-old transgender student was allowed access to both the male and female bathrooms. A senator has told 9 News the move raises safety issues But the Catholic Education Department says it's simply complying with the law.
Zoe Jones is a mother of 2 young girls who are now using the same school bathrooms as a biological boy.
Our children feel unsafe. They don't feel comfortable in going to the girls' toilets.
It's happening at an Adelaide Catholic school, which 9 News has chosen not to name. An 11-year-old child allowed to use both bathrooms after choosing to identify as a girl.
I think it's very concerning, and I've been contacted by a number of parents, and there are safety issues that need to be considered about this.
Zoe says there was no communication about the decision, but a number of parents have since contacted the school with their concerns.
So other parents have rang the school. They have the school has spoken to them, and they've advised that if our girls don't want to use the girls' toilets with a biological male, they need to use a disabled toilet.
The Catholic Education Office wouldn't confirm whether that is the advice being given to concerned parents, instead telling 9 News that it's committed to a safe, respectful and inclusive learning environment and complying with the law. Education Department policy states that a gender-diverse child or young person should be able to access the facilities that match their gender identity.
When we are looking at the rights of girls, then we probably have those policy settings wrong.
Both the school and the Education Minister have refused to comment, instead directing all inquiries to the Catholic Education Office. Keziah Sullivan, 9 News.
So yeah, that's very interesting, but I wanted to show this little screen again there as well, because as you can see there, that word should, now they're talking about law and legal, gender diverse child or young person should be able to. That is not must or anything like that in law. And we saw this through the COVID times when I was advocating for children in care in regards to receiving a medical procedure over the last few years, and that all children in care should have access to and receive that medical treatment. So that should is really interesting way of putting things. So, but anyway, that's again out of South Australia. That's a Adelaide Catholic school, so really challenging. And these days, this is happening more and more. And Stephanie Bastian has commented on this. There are safety issues that need to be considered about this, and that was Senator Leah Blythe. Schoolgirls told to use disabled toilet if they feel unsafe after a Catholic school in Adelaide permitted an 11-year-old boy to use the female bathrooms after identifying as a girl. Peter Malinauskas, this is atrocious. You can't hide behind the Catholic Education Office. The edusa.gov or gov policies aren't inclusive. They deprive girls of the dignity, privacy and safety of single-sex spaces. Now, regardless of how we obviously need to try and be respectful as much as possible to everybody. I've raised concerns and I've spoken this, and probably going to get a bit of heat and feedback from that, which is fine. Happy for you to put your comments in there. I stand by my view that male and female exist, and males, no matter what age, should not be provided access to female-only spaces, and that is where I sit, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that do not agree with that, but that is my view. Happy for you to comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. I know that I've covered in some other podcasts some organisations that are helping parents navigate this space, because a lot of parents are actually raising concerns in regards to this in the schooling system, and obviously all around the country and the world we're seeing very heated debate about the inclusion of biological male in female sports and female only places, and so I don't suspect that's going to go away anytime soon, but it does need to get aired and discussed and debated about how we move forward effectively. So another little story just to tie into that is sharing this here from Michael Arbin, who's another great South Australian. So this sort of ties into this a little bit, is that homeschooling is no longer on the fringe. It's a movement. And I guess it ties into that last story that I've just talked about, because there's a lot of parents extremely concerned about the schooling system, and it for a long time it was really about the public school system, but now as we can see, it's impacting faith-based schools and private schools as well. So so this is from New South Wales. Homeschooling has surged from 3,298 kids in 2014 to 12,762 today. In Queensland, registrations have skyrocketed, up 122% in primary and 221% in secondary since 2020. Over 11,300 Queensland students are now learning at home. This is quite a revolution. Parents are voting with their feet, saying loud and clear, we, not the system, know what's best for our kids. And that's exactly right. And that's citing there an article from Mamma Mia, the Australian homeschooling boom. No one's talking about, story there by Raffaella Ciccarelli. And I'm hoping at some stage to catch up with Michael again as well. He has a great insight into a lot of topics as well. So it would be great to have Michael on. He's always got a lot of common sense. But is it any wonder that people are looking at homeschooling options there? And the other thing is, with that, it's going to be driven even further. But we're seeing now the state, whether it be federal or state governments, are starting to look at ways they can put in mechanisms to restrict homeschooling. So watch this space about what happens there. So, what happens when the system starts to fail parents and they no longer have a trust in the government to offer education for their children. They remove them and look at other options. So what does the state do? They start doubling down and saying, no, we actually we want control over your kids' malleable minds into the future. And I think this is where we have a lot of the woes that are happening to us now. Again, just my view. Happy for you to share your thoughts on that in the comments as well, and feedback, and I'll see if I can bring that into future shows as well. And just in regards to where we're heading as a nation, I'm just going to share this is from a podcast I've been following a little bit lately as well. This is interesting about what's happening around the world now as well. So I'm just going to quickly share this and play this for you.
So my agency just dropped me, where I'd done a bit of on and off work modelling over the past couple of years. It was nothing major, but it was good cash for a few hours of work. And here's what they wrote. Unfortunately, some of the political commentary and content has generated negative feedback and has resulted in backlash directed towards the agency. In light of this, and after careful consideration, we will need to terminate your representation with us, effective immediately. What's the translation? Well, there's a bunch of woke people in modelling, TV, and the movie industries, and they don't like what I say. Well, to be honest, I'm pretty happy with that, and I'll wear this like a badge of honour. And looking back on the past couple of weeks, maybe it was a reel where I called out Jacinta Allen for saying trans kids are 15 times more likely to commit suicide, when the truth is, if we let kids be kids and stop the woke nonsense, they'd be 15 times less likely to commit suicide. Or maybe it was when the Daily Fail twisted my words from a reel I did and ran this story. Or maybe it's just because I have guests on who talk straight common sense, which is apparently too dangerous now. Or maybe, just maybe, it's because the film and TV industry is riddled with a woke mind virus and they don't simply like what I say. Well, that's a good thing, I guess. Probably means I'm over the target, right? And trust me, this doesn't slow me down one bit. It only fires me up, because where I'm headed, I don't need an agent, I don't need a manager, I don't need handlers whispering in my ear telling me what I can and can't say. The only thing I might need in the future is a good lawyer and a few ex-military mates that can run a private security detail for when I do public gigs. That's the reality, because that's the direction I'm headed. It's not Hollywood, it's not the woke industry, it's straight to the people. And for that, I don't need them. I just need to keep speaking the truth. And look, I'm not going to name the agency. That's not me, that's not who I am. And I don't want any of my followers contacting them either. We don't need to lower our standards. Let's just keep focusing on the real issues in Australia. I'm only highlighting this to show you the outcome of what happens when you speak up. Because at the end of the day, this is what happens when you speak up against the narrative. And if that's the effect of what I say, then so be it. I can live with that. If anything, it just lights a bigger fire underneath me. So if speaking up costs me representation, I'll take it every single time. Because this isn't about me, it's about calling out the bullshit in a common sense approach. And trust me, I'm not going anywhere. So game on. What's your thoughts?
There you go. So what's your thoughts? And that is true, isn't it? Because this is what's happened, is that over the years we've seen many good people being attacked and deplatformed or even cancelled. Cancel culture has gotten onto people's workplaces, lobbied to try and get someone fired for their point of view and thinking. And this is, there's a lot of people actually starting to push back now, and there's a lot of people becoming aware that is what's happening. You might not agree with what people are saying, but to cost people their jobs, people are getting a bit frustrated on that, and people are setting themselves up to be resilient to that as well. So, look, I think, if you look at it from a Christian perspective, from what I speak into the podcast as well, at the end of the day, we're seeing our brothers and sisters in Christ around the world facing massive amounts of persecution, even death, for their belief in a Christian faith in our Lord and Saviour Jesus. And at the end of the day, they're facing massive persecution. And I myself, I figure, if as a Christian speaking out against things that I see is wrong, if the worst I'm going to copy is people to try and deplatform me, try and come after me for my work, and ultimately this is why people set themselves up to try and rely on people, supporters, to be able to support them, to be able to share the counter narrative and the views that possibly aren't that popular but go against the grain. So look, at the end of the day, there's many people facing far worse, and if we're going to cop a little bit of backlash for views, opinions, and thoughts, then or if that's the worst that's going to happen, then so be it. But it's pretty much just the sign of the times in regards to cancel culture and coming after people. But good on him for letting that slide off his back and getting into it. And talking about cancel culture a little bit further, I wanted to share this from George Christensen, who's obviously heavily involved with Citizen Go, an amazing organisation doing great things. And they've got this petition here about the Christian doctor persecuted for his beliefs. So this was put up by George Christensen, amazing Australian as well. The Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, which is AHPRA, which there'll be a bit of AHPRA covered this evening, suspended a Christian GP for memes and Bible-informed opinions. If they can do it to him, they can do it to you. So what's happened? Victorian GP Dr. Gareth Cock has been suspended since 2019 with no patient complaints and no clinical misconduct. Regulators sifted through years of his private, satirical and faith-based posts and called them misconduct. A tribunal upheld findings on some posts, yet threw out over a third, exposing gross overreach. And we heard that a lot over the last 5 years, haven't we? He now faces a sanctions hearing in 2026 that could cancel his registration for good. Why this matters to you? Professional licensing is being used as a censorship weapon against lawful religious and conservative speech. If AHPRA gets away with this, every professional who speaks their conscience is at risk. 6 years of suspension without closure is a violation of natural justice and a warning to us all. And this is what happens, is that it's that lawfare, and we've seen that with Kelly Smith and others Mr. Gaynor as well, where people come after people for their views and opinions and take them through the courts for years in the hope that they break them. So look, that I wanted to make you aware of that. If you want to jump on board with Citizen Go, Christian Doctor Persecuted for his belief there, and sign that petition if you feel that it is something worthy of you to do there. But following on from AHPRA, let's have a look at, and I've shared this before, this is another great South Australian, which is Elizabeth Hart, and she was talking about in her Substack a lot, it's called Vaccination is Political. Assessment of your complaint. So she's had a recent complaint that she put in, and saying my decision not to investigate. This is from the response from the National Health Practitioner Ombudsman's office. So if you want to go to Elizabeth's Substack, jump on the Substack and look for Elizabeth Hart, and you can have a look at that. Medical procedure is political. Recently, I shared with readers my formal complaint. This is Elizabeth Hart speaking to Rochelle McCausland, the National Health Practitioner Ombudsman, about AHPRA's failure to warn vaccinators not to collaborate with COVID-19 medical procedure mandates. AHPRA's failure to warn medical procedure administrators not to collaborate with COVID-19 medical procedure mandates. And you're probably wondering why I'm saying that, but maybe not. You know that there is some platforms that don't like certain things. But anyway. So this is a classical institutional brush off with the Ombudsman's office closing ranks around AHPRA rather than grappling with the substance of my complaint about systemic regulatory failure at AHPRA. Judge the response from the Ombudsman office for yourself. I've posted it in full below. So if you jump to Elizabeth's Substack there, and you'll see that response there, which obviously I'm not going to read out in full, but the information's there for you to go on there. So that is Elizabeth Hart's Substack. If you look for her there, you'll be able to see that there. And another great Australian that I'll talk into there is going to be Ian Brighthope. I'll bring that up in a second. And if I find that, there we go. And so Ian Brighthope, another great Australian, talking into the medical field as well, the demise of the caring medical profession caused by regulatory overreach. So we're getting a bit of a pattern here, I'm hoping. The human cost being bankruptcy and patient death, suicide becomes a powerful option for the caring doctor. A very strong topic there. So that's Ian Brighthope's Substack, Ian Brighthope, if people want to follow along there. And he's got an opinion there. So this is again, AHPRA is coming up again, was created to protect patients, but it has drifted into protecting the state from scrutiny. This is regulation as political enforcement, not professional oversight. Unless reined in, Australia risks losing not only its best doctors, but also the trust of the public in whose name the system operates. Furthermore, if Australia continues on its current path, patients, especially cancer patients, will remain trapped in a system that denies them choice, denies them dignity, and denies them hope. But if regulators are forced back to their proper role, protecting patients from genuine harm, not ideas, then a new era of cancer care can dawn, one that is humane, plural, and truly evidence-based. Professional autonomy is not a privilege. It is the bedrock of safe, ethical healthcare. To defend it is to defend both science and democracy. The choice is stark. Either we dismantle bureaucratic overreach now, or we bequeath to the next generation a profession reduced to silence and servitude. So quite a lengthy opinion piece there. I'd encourage you to watch that. As always, a great insight coming out of Professor Brighthope there. And we're seeing a pattern, obviously, over the last 5 years through the whole pandemic response, about the bureaucratic overreach, and it continues to this day. And Australians, like Australians, many Australians as possible, to be aware of the alternative information. And obviously, alternative media like myself and others, our point is obviously to try and push through the mainstream media and the ones that are very well funded and controlled and supported by the state, and others that are streaming into lounge rooms and cars and everything. We're trying to obviously break through that to give you a different perspective and so forth. And that's hopefully what we'll continue to do successfully. There's some amazing podcasters and news presenters out there on the alternative media stream as well. So, I'm just one small little drop in that ocean of great commentators and podcasters out there. So let's hope we can continue to push through getting you guys the information that you need. Just now, international news. Going to share this little bit here with you. Going over to the States now. This was shared by Bobby Kennedy, but he's shared this image link, and it's an image link to the American Academy of Pediatrics. So dedicated to the health of all children, and it's mentioning about corporate donors to the AAP Friends of Children Fund, and it's a thanking and a recognition of the donors. President's Circle above 50,000, so 50,000 and above, and of course we can see there Merck, Moderna, Pfizer, and Sanofi, and obviously those that are listening to just the audio, I'm trying to obviously read out as much as possible of the stuff that I'm sharing here, but those that are obviously viewing, you can see that. So this is a post from Secretary Kennedy, and I'm going to read a little bit of that. What I just showed was a screenshot from American Academy of Pediatrics webpage, thanking the organisation's top corporate donors. These 4 companies make virtually every medical procedure on the CDC recommended childhood medical procedure schedule. AAP is angry that CDC has eliminated corporate influence in decisions over medical procedure recommendations and returned CDC to gold standard science and evidence-based medicine, laser focused on children's health. AAP today, so AAP Academy, American Academy of Pediatrics, today released its own list of corporate-friendly medical procedure recommendations. The Trump administration believes in free speech, and AAP has a right to make its case to the American people, but AAP should follow the lead of HHS and disclose conflicts of interest, including its corporate entanglements and those of its journal Pediatrics, so that Americans may ask whether the AAP's recommendations reflect public health interest or are perhaps just a pay-to-play scheme to promote commercial ambitions of AAP's big medical producers benefactors. AAP should also be candid with doctors and hospitals about the recommendations that diverge from the CDC's official list are not shielded from liability under the 1986 Medical Procedure Injury Act. That actually says something else there, but for obvious reasons, I'm trying as much as possible to mention other things. So. So that's there. So Secretary Kennedy heading back there on that, as we expected things were going to change under this current administration. But I thought it was interesting just to share again. I have shared it in the past, but just wanted to cover it again because here in Australia, the Therapeutic Goods Administration is obviously massively funded by producers of medical products, and you can see here that it has been reported on extensively anyway by others, and I've shared it before. But Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration proportion of budget derived from the industry is 96%. So it's good to keep in mind in regards to stuff that's happening over in the States and how we might approach more of that regulatory reform and influence on these sort of things from billion upon billion of dollars corporate companies. So just thought I'd share that with you there. And also just now moving on and changing track a little bit, going back to South Australia in my own state, but this one's a pretty hard-hitting one for people, and it's really important to share this. This is Sarah Game, who's obviously now started up her own political party, which she was with One Nation and resigned, and has now started her own party, but still obviously working for South Australians. And she's just come out and had a talk in Parliament as well. But I'll just read this quite serious thing that Sarah Game's covering here, and we're going to read a little bit of this. So, who in the South Australian Parliament has got your back? So last night, this is Sarah Game. This I'm reading from Sarah Game's post for those that aren't. That are just listening. Last night, the Malinowskis government passed. So last night, the Malinowskis government passed the Emergency Management Miscellaneous Amendment Bill 2024. So just into this is the thing about the complacency from many Australians in regards to local politics, whether it be their local council, state and federal politics, just kind of just getting on with life. And I get it, just, you want to pay your bills, you want to get out, you spend time with your family, do whatever. But while everybody's doing that, you elect the people in that you thought that at some point in history you could trust them, but they're putting through bills and legislations that ultimately, as you will see, could potentially massively undermine your freedoms, rights and liberties. So let's read this a little bit further here. Under the amended general powers, Section 25 of the Act, the state coordinator and authorised officers are given the power to issue directions in any form without limitation. These directions may contravene another law of the state, affect individuals' personal rights, and may use force to ensure compliance. Now, the last 5 years, those sorts of things should absolutely worry everybody in regards to that sort of wording and terminology. But the other thing to be aware of is that here in South Australia, the Malinowskis Labor government has obviously declared, as of 2022, I believe, declared a climate emergency here in South Australia. So whenever they declare an emergency like they did through COVID times, it just makes you wonder the kind of things that they've legislated that they can then use to control you, whether it be under the guise of a climate emergency, a health emergency, or whatever. So this is some of the concerning stuff when you're reading, when I continue reading through this from Sarah Game, and thank you, Sarah, for doing this. These directions can include breaking into any land, building, structure or vehicle, taking possession or assuming control over any land, body or water, removing or destroying buildings, structures, vehicles, vegetations and even animals. So consider this about this the food thing that's happening, in regards to this perceived bird flu and other things, coming into this is just me ad-libbing again, talking into some of these points. Some of these measures that people want to grow their own vegetables and they want to have a bit of their own livestock. Imagine what this means for you down the track. So I'm going to continue reading now. Ordering real estate owners to forfeit control of their properties, removing people or animals, directing people to admit to a decontamination procedure, directing people to isolate. Now, Sarah goes on to say, I was the only member of Parliament who opposed these extraordinary measures and the only one who presented significant measures to limit these powers. Now, I'm talking to my South Australian audience here, and if people would kindly indulge me, we do have in March of next year a state election coming up. And this is where it's really important that at the moment, if Sarah Game's the only one, pushing back and all the other members pushing these things through, we as South Australians really need to consider strongly about who we vote for and elect in the next elections in March, because if nothing changes, these things are only going to get worse, and we won't have people like Sarah, enough people like Sarah pushing back. So let's hope that we've got some really good candidates that will put themselves up for next year to be able to, for people to vote on, and hopefully might be able to get a few more people in there that can support Sarah in pushing back on these bills. And I'll continue reading now from Sarah. All legislative council members voted against my proposals to restrict and provide a reasonable oversight of these excessive powers. In the absence of any parliamentary oversight or limitation on what many in the legal profession, including the Law Society, have characterised as exceptionally broad and disproportionate executive powers, the rights of South Australians have been put at considerable risk. So read that again. In the absence of any parliamentary oversight or limitations on what many in the legal profession, including the Law Society, have characterised as exceptionally broad and disproportionate executive powers, the rights of South Australians have been put at considerable risk. When you vote in the Legislative Council next March, remember who stood up for the people against the power of the government and who didn't. So if you want to check out the speech there, you can go to Sarah Games' social media. She's got a bit of a presence on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Facebook. So you can check that out there yourself, where she's talking into that. It's a bit of about an 8-minute speech there. So now moving on to another little story that I had a little bit of a comment regards as well. So the ABC Four Corners program, Four Corners, Next on Four Corners Lawfare, talked into the sovereign citizens movement here in Australia, and obviously painting the light. Remember, this is the Australian broadcaster, $1.2 billion funded by us, the taxpayer, and doing a little bit of a story on there. Now, my whole point with this is that what we've seen over the last 5 years or longer, we've seen a massive deterioration in the trust for government and bureaucracy, and even legacy media. Now, my view for this is that I don't call for, absolutely as a pacifist, do not call for any violence and aggression towards individuals and that. But in saying that, what I've watched transpire over the last 5 years as a person that kind of was just getting on with my life as well, and becoming aware of a lot of things, and having my own experiences over the last 5 years of a massive, in my opinion, governmental bureaucratic overreach and othering by legacy media and ministers of the state, I can understand why Australians are getting frustrated and why there's a distrust for law enforcement, whether it be police and our judiciary and the bureaucracy and our politicians. So we've seen that firsthand around our nation. So they will look at any opportunity to paint any resistance or any pushback or any challenging of government. They paint that as bad and far right and something that needs to be suppressed. And now light is the best disinfectant, and obviously we've commented on the recent marches and so forth, and and the White Australia call on that, and I've pushed back on that, but ultimately free speech and these people are allowed to talk into these, and there's obviously a lot of pushback on that. And this is the same with people in the movement that want to change the structure of the government or push back on the current structure of the government. It's interesting that they didn't interview at length Rod Cullerton, who has a lot of insight into this, so very, very interesting in that regard. So I just say to people, use caution, don't buy into the fear about people that are just really almost at a loss of where to go now, because they've been let down by so many of Australia's institutions that they're obviously looking at different avenues to be able to get their own individual sovereignty back and have the state out of their lives. So it's just worth considering that, rather than the narrated legacy media, mainstream media messaging that comes out of that. So, but happy for you to get your feedback if I'm wrong on that, whatever, you got your own input on that. Happy for you to obviously share that as well. So I thought I'd cover that story there. They ran that program the other night as well. But moving on again to more international things again now, I just wanted to cover this quick Substack by, this is Jacob Nordengard. He has a Substack, The Pharaoh's Chronicles. Jacob Nordengard's a PhD, and he's just reported on the World Economic Forum Board of Directors have cleared Klaus Schwab of wrongdoing. As you know, that Klaus Schwab was the head of the WEF, or the mouthpiece and the face of the WEF for many decades, and it has now put BlackRock's Larry Fink and Roche's André Hoffman in charge of operations. They will now act to accelerate the World Economic Forum's strategic efforts to increase the impact of global corporations for a better future, which in practice means the implementation of a worldwide technocracy. So you can read that on that Substack as well. And it's really interesting, some of the links that he makes to a few things there in regards to Larry Fink and some of these people in very, very high corporate positions. And so what I wanted to quickly talk into that was is that I have massive concerns as an Australian and as a nation, the influences of international bodies, including the United Nations and the World Health Organization. Many people have raised concerns about this, and including think tanks and all outfits like the World Economic Forum, who like to dictate the way that the world goes. But many stories and Substacks have been put together in regards to BlackRock and Vanguard and the massive control of these trillion-dollar outfits, and the people like Larry Fink, who obviously heads that BlackRock. So it's very concerning for me that people with so much power, so much funds behind them, and it's not, you don't even have to, it's not even a conspiracy theory, it's not anything like that. It's actual fact. You can research all this yourself about the amount of power, and you can hear Larry Fink talking many times how they have the ability to navigate and push policy and so forth with the amount of power and money that they have. So I have concerns, and it is happening. And I have concerns for our nation here in Australia about the influence of international outfits and individuals that have lots of money. And you could name people like George Soros. I mean, even Elon Musk, with all his billions as well, has the ability to change directions of conversations with his reach and his power. So look, all these people, for those of us that are sort of on the ground day to day, 9-to-5 jobs, trying to make it live and pay our mortgages, which is getting more and more out of control, for us, we need to be aware that, and the only way that we can push back on perceived overreach or actual overreach is by working together and mainly being informed. And that's why I guess our job in the alternative media, in the podcasting space, is to help you think and maybe start researching, looking yourself, and contemplating putting things in place, or what might be best for you into the future, as some of these larger corporations, this marriage of the state and corporations, get stronger and impact the average everyday Aussie's life. So it's just something to be mindful of going forward, and why I wanted to mention it. Another one is another Substack I wanted to mention is, and I mentioned him before, with Citizen Go, is George Christensen's got another Substack out, and so his Substack is Nation First by George Christensen, and one of his recent ones is Take Back Australia, the Manifesto in Brief. So this is Nation First summarises its 4-part policy manifesto to get Australia back in track. And those of you that have been following my personal Substack, Mark Neugebauer's Substack, I've written into a policy platform after, looking at all the policies from all the sort of centre conservative kind of parties in an election, and put them all together, and had a little bit of a play with that, with a policy platform. But if you want to check that out, here, this Take Back Australia, the Manifesto in Brief, Nation First by George Christensen, you can jump onto that Substack as well. And so talking about sovereignty, talking about an economy for our people, and he talks into communities and families, energy and resources. So if you want to find out more, obviously jump on there, follow George on his social media as well, and check that out, and see if that's going to be something that sort of resonates with you, what he's proposing there, and whether it's something that you can jump on. Now, just in regards to, I guess, the Christian faith, because I guess what the podcast is, faith, culture, politics. Seeing this, the Daily Declaration is a good article as well. You can sign up and get that into your mailbox regularly. Kurt Malmberg and that write in that for quite a bit. He's heavily involved, Kurt Malmberg, but many others as well as part of their editorial team. But this is a little story out of New South Wales. Premier Chris Minns celebrates Christianity, which is nice to see, considering many people like to push back on the things that we're talking about in regards to what's happening in our culture and so forth. So there's quite a bit of pushback. So good to see a politician doing that, and to see a few more of them doing that as well. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has spoken candidly about his Catholic faith and the importance of the public celebration of Christianity in New South Wales. Addressing the launch of a Christian Alliance Council of New South Wales at Parliament House last week, Minns reflected on the contribution of Christianity to public life in New South Wales. It's an important thing to celebrate, and as a missionary faith, and I include myself as a member of this missionary faith, it's our duty, and in many respects, to stand up and celebrate Christianity, its importance to Australian life, the fact that so many people that serve in this parliament got their drive and their determination and their bearing and their forbearance from their faith, from their Christian faith, he went on to say. So you can read more of that article in the Daily Declaration there as well. So look, it's good to see. Obviously, as I said, good to see parliamentarians talking into the Christian faith. And if we're talking into Australia, Australia was founded with the Christian faith. Back in the days when the first sermon was provided, the first prayer and service was provided back in 1788 as well. There was a strong Christian influence over this nation for its ethos and its values moving forward. And unfortunately, as we've seen Christianity decline in this great nation, we've also seen, from what I personally believe, the culture has declined immensely as well. So, talking into this next story, just wanted to premise it, this next Substack that I'm going to talk to you about. As you know, I've got my own Substack, and I do a regular podcast with Dr. Bruce Pay. Now, episode 70, Wake Up Australia, the most current one I did. I talked heavily into the march, and I talked heavily into this idea of white Australia, and I talked heavily into the idea of heritage, and especially in regards to British Celtic heritage, that a lot of people were jumping on board. And I talked about the idea of naturalisation. When someone naturalised, they were deemed equal with subjects from Britain and surrounds. So talked into that, but I kind of wanted to just give you a brief, and if people want to check that out, you can see my views in that in the first 20 odd minutes of that podcast with Bruce. But the reason I led into that is because I'm just sharing now Senator Ralph Babette's Substack, Let's Talk About It. And his heading there is Multiracial, Yes. Multicultural, no. Multiculturalism doesn't work. It is a failed experiment that has served only to dilute what is great about Western culture and fracture social cohesion. And it kind of ties in for what I was saying about the Christian ethos and values and the culture that was created in this nation out of that was born out of that. I'll just read this first little bit. Multiculturalism doesn't work. It is a failed experiment that has served only to dilute what is great about Western culture and fracture social cohesion. To say this is not to attack migrants. I myself am a migrant. Myself now, I'm not reading from the Substack. I'm a son of a migrant born in Australia, but I have kids and grandkids, so I do have migrant heritage as well as Senator Babette. So reading on from Senator Babette's Substack, but my family didn't immigrate to Australia in order to reproduce a foreign culture, as multiculturalism encourages migrants to do. And Bruce and I have talked about this at length in our podcasts around that as well. Exactly that. It's not about colour, heritage. It's about a set of values and beliefs that shapes nations. So, reading on, and Ralph Babette says, I have no hesitation asserting that Australian culture is superior to most others. If I didn't believe this, I wouldn't live here. But sadly, not all migrants share that view, which is correct. And worse, multiculturalism encourages their disdain of the nation that welcomes them. The West made a grave mistake when it embraced moral relativism, which then, as a natural consequence, led to cultural relativism. By rejecting objective truth, we lost any basis for observing that some cultures were preferable to others. And Bruce and I have talked about that. Not all cultures align, and as mentioned, the Christian ethos and values shaped this nation. We did have a culture that bore out of that, which included the inhabitants that were here prior to 1788, meshed into that, and on from there over the last couple of hundred years, shaped into the nation that it became up until around the 1950s, 60s, 70s. And as we've discussed before, from the 70s, so the last 50 years, there's been a massive influence to, I would assert, undermine the values and the ethos, and indeed the culture that Australia had prior to, say, the 1970s, and there's been a massive erosion from there. So I agree. If you want to check out that Substack from Ralph Babette, Senator Ralph Babette further, he's got his Substack. It's called Let's Talk About It. You can check that out there as well. On his Substack there, and I tend to agree with him on that. And as I said, feel free, as Jason Olborn says, black pill as much as possible if you need to. The only way that we can continue to have debate, deliberation, and discussions is by sharing. As I said, if I can get to as many of them, I will. With your feedback, and just to tie this around, just do this little topic, and to end this podcast as well, as I'm conscious not to go too long either, and just wanted to show you this table here, and this is the decline in Christianity since 1901. So you can see there, 96% of people in Australia around 1901 identified as Christian. You know, a bit of a decline into the end of 1966, 82%. If we jump to sort of the 90s, it's sort of into 70%. The 2000s into 60, and now, as of the last data collection, 2021, sitting around just under 44%, which I've covered in other podcasts as well. So there's been a massive decline of the Christian faith, which has had heavily influenced our nation's ethos and values. So I'm hoping to see a rebound from that. It'll be very interesting to see the figures when they come in the next round. I think it's next year they do another one there. So it'll be interesting to see. But as it stands now, you know, speak your truth, speak you know, faithfully and truthfully, and ultimately you will get attacked for talking about your faith. I unashamedly do, and happy to be to wear whatever comes out of that. Our brothers and sisters internationally are facing far worse for standing up for their faith. I happen to believe that the values, the ethos, the culture Australia had up until a few decades ago was amazing, and I hope we get back to that stage as well and bring as many people with us as possible. So look, really appreciate the fact that you've come and joined me for this hour. Looking to obviously bring much more to you. I'm hoping that I can resonate with you, give me some suggestions and ideas about where I might be going wrong, what you'd like to see more of, who you'd like to see me interview, all these sorts of things. If you've got some recommendations, I'm happy to take them on board. And as always, if you have the opportunity and the means, by all means, buy me a coffee, support that. If it ends up getting to the stage that I can kick the 9 to 5 and afford to be able to do this, bring you content a few times throughout the day, and possibly even get more time to research topics, then that would be really great. But that can only happen through your support. We know that the legacy media, the mainstream media, have got a war chest of millions and millions of dollars, and people like myself rely on the support from followers and viewers and listeners like yourself. So yeah, appreciate the time you spent with me. And as I lead out, I'm going to just play a little bit of a song, and this is I'm going to put the where you can find this song on YouTube, and you'll be able to maybe follow along from there just as we close out for the evening. So look, thanks for joining me. Appreciate the time that you've spent with me, and hope you enjoy this little tune. Hoping to put something different together at the end of every show, and a little bit of a tune, but to see you out. But obviously, if you want to jump off, that's fine as well. So until next time, God bless you, God bless Australia, and wishing everybody the best of times until next time. All right, thank you.
I was walking with the weight I couldn't name, bound by guilt, buried in shame. Dark was the road, heavy was the sound, till I called on Jesus and the chains fell down. I tried to fix it with my hands and pride, but every step just left me tied. Then mercy met me on that holy ground. He spoke my name and the chains fell down. Oh, the chains fell down, no longer bound. Grace like a river, glory all around. My soul stood free where fear once was found. Praise the Lord, those chains fell down. Now I sing in the light I never knew. Peace in my bones, joy breaking through. The past don't hold me, I wear no crown, but I walk in freedom 'cause the chains fell down. No more lies, no more doubt, 'cause truth came in and pulled me out. From the grave to the solid ground, I was dead, but now I'm found. Oh, the chains fell down, no longer bound. Grace like a river, glory all around. My soul stood free where fear once was found. Praise the Lord, those chains fell down. He still breaks chains, I've seen it true. He can break the ones holding you.
Master, we know that thou art true, and carest for no man, for thou regardest not the person of men, but teachest the way of God in truth. Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not? Shall we give, or shall we not give?
Why tempt ye me, bringing me a penny, that I may see it? Whose is this image and superscription?
Caesar's.
Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. Watch out that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains.